What's up, guys? So it's episode 6 here in Shootin' the Breeze. We're going to be talking a lot of the NBA today. Tyronn Lue was extended with the Clippers as their new head coach. Obviously, the Celtics have advanced to the NBA Finals. They sweep the Pacers, and the Wolves were able to extend the series to make it 3-1 in the West. So basically, just getting right into it. I see the Wolves possibly extending this series to a sixth game in Dallas, but they have not been very good. I believe they're 1-4 in their last 5 home games in the playoffs. They've not been very good at home. They don't protect home court, so I don't know how much of an advantage that is heading back to Minnesota. But if Anthony Edwards is able to be as aggressive as he was the last game, then they may have a chance to extend this to a sixth game. Ultimately, I see Dallas taking this and going on to face the Celtics in the finals. And those will start June 6th. The Celtics beat Dallas by 20, I think 28 the last time they played. And prior to that, they beat them by 9. And one was on the road and one was at home. Obviously, different situations now. I think Dallas has gotten really hot. If Derek Lively's able to play and is healthy, he's a big X factor, especially when guarding Porzingis, who should be ready to go and healthy for the finals. As a Celtics fan, I'd like to see them win this one in 6. I think they have a chance to. I think Dallas has a very good chance. They're playing as well as they could possibly play right now, both offensively and defensively. Derek Lively's been outstanding for them on both ends of the floor. And Luka's been playing well. Kyrie as well. Got off to a slow start last night, but overall, I think that those two have been outstanding, and that was a dynamic that I did not see working. I think that notably, the Celtics are a team that, when it gets into crunch time, one of the things that they've struggled with is they don't really. It hasn't. Neither of their stars have established themselves as true closers. Obviously, Brown hit a big shot earlier in the series to send the game to overtime, and Jason Tatum seems to disappear a little bit in crunch time. He had a good overtime period in Game 1 against the Pacers, but overall I've not been impressed by what Tatum has been able to do in clutch time for the most part throughout his career. So, and we all know that he set the record for turnovers in a playoff run the year they went to the finals a couple of years ago. And Jaylen Brown was solid in the finals, but they weren't good enough together against the Warriors, even when they were up 2-0, or 2-1 I should say. They ended up losing in 6. They lost 3 straight. The Celtics have been a team that they get very streaky, especially when they rely on the three-point shot as much as they do. And I think it's going to depend a lot on Al Horford, how he's able to do. Is he going to be able to stay healthy? Can Porzingis stay healthy? Is he going to be able to give them starters minutes? Because I think eventually Horford's going to wear down. He's been playing almost 20 years in the NBA. He's got 180 playoff games. So I think that it's going to be an issue, especially if Porzingis is not fully ready to go. I think their depth as far as bigs is very minimal. They've tried O'Shea Brissett, Xavier Tillman. I didn't think you got much out of him in his minutes, but they were trying. They were trying to find another big in there to go with, but it didn't feel like there was a lot there. So I think that in terms of if Porzingis is not fully healthy, they may go small more often. But Dallas is definitely going to be a tough out, especially with the way they're playing offensively. Their defense has been excellent as well. Minnesota had been playing tremendous defense throughout the playoffs, and Dallas has been able to crack them. So I think that it's going to be very much predicated on how much the Celtics are able to score, and are they able to slow down Kyrie and Luka. Obviously, Kyrie returning to Boston is a big story. He left here on not so great terms. Originally promised he was going to be here to stay. Obviously, that ultimately did not happen. He went to Brooklyn. Um, I'm not. I'm. Kyrie has not handled the Boston crowd well, but there was the game in the playoffs a couple years ago against Brooklyn where I think he went off for 43 or something like that in Boston. So I think at times he's been able to fuel himself, and I also think Kyrie this year has been able to sort of, um, a lot of the haters have sort of gone away towards him. I think he's handled himself extremely well. He hasn't been a distraction, and he's just playing basketball. And you can tell that where he is out there in Dallas, he's very comfortable, seems to be very happy. He's got a great coach with Jason Kidd, and I think he's finally settled into that number 2 role behind Luka. I did not think that would work. I thought with both players being so ball dominant, I felt like that would be something that would become an issue. But clearly they've been able to make it work. It's almost like they take turns in terms of who's going to score. And it seemed to work very well for Dallas. So I like Dallas to beat Minnesota. I wouldn't be surprised if they knock them out in Game 5 tomorrow night. Especially with, like I said, the way Minnesota's played at home. But I'm going to give Minnesota a little more credit than they may even deserve. And I'm going to say they force a Game 6, and then Dallas puts them out. And then, obviously, today with the Clippers, they re-signed Tyronn Lue to an extension, a multiple-year extension that keeps him with the Clippers long-term. I know there was some whispers that he might potentially be interested in the Laker job. I don't think that was ever the case. I think he planned on staying with the Clippers, and the Clippers were never going to let him leave, especially not for the Lakers when they're getting ready to open a new arena. I think the Clippers are going to be they're going to be a different-looking team in many ways next year. I don't think Paul George is going to come back. I actually think he's going to go to either Philadelphia or somewhere like that, because it seems like the Clippers have sort of drawn a line in the sand in terms of what they're willing to offer him. They're not willing to go higher than what they offered Kawhi, and I think he's going to get more money on the open market, especially from the 76ers. The Sixers need to add a wing. It didn't work out with Tobias Harris. I think they're going to let him walk, and I think you're going to see Paul George fill that void. There's talk also of potentially Chris Paul returning to the Clippers. I think he's more likely headed to Los Angeles to play for the Lakers, especially with his friendship with LeBron. I know Rich Paul also said this week that LeBron is a free agent, but I have a feeling that he'll be staying with the Lakers, and that's probably where he's going to finish his career. On to, speaking of LeBron James, his son Bronny officially said that he's going to be staying in the draft and he's going to forgo his college eligibility. So officially Bronny is headed to the NBA. Where he'll be picked is anybody's guess. Obviously the Celtics were in their last mock draft, were the ones that were selecting him according to ESPN. I mentioned this last week. I think that in many ways could be a good spot for him, but I don't see Rich Paul and LeBron letting that happen. I think Phoenix seems like a team that's interested. I know they're going to be working him out. I think he's got several workouts scheduled, but I think a lot of the things with Bronny is he just needs to play. Going to a contender in some ways would be good in that there's not as much pressure on him, but then he's also not going to get as many minutes in and potentially could be playing in the G League for the most part, which I think happens with a lot of draft picks. Outside of lottery picks, most even first-round draft picks end up going to the G League, at least for a little bit. So I think that there's a good chance that you'll see some Bronny in the G League, and I think that's what's needed for him if he's not going to get extended minutes wherever he's taken. So I think that in the end, I see him as a Laker. I think he's going to end up getting drafted by LA, and I think that especially with the way LeBron is sort of holding the cards, that's where I see him ending up. So I'm gonna have him going to the Lakers. Moving on a little bit, I wanted to talk some football. In terms of just some holdouts, I know T. Higgins and Jamar Chase have both not shown up for OTAs for the Bengals. Both looking for new deals. Obviously, T. Higgins was franchised, and Jamar Chase wants a top-of-the-market deal. Justin Jefferson has also sat out. So I think that there's going to be a lot of money being handed out to receivers. I think that this is why, though, a lot of receivers are being, you see Stephon Diggs traded, and then they draft Keon Coleman in the second round. Buffalo does. I think receiver is becoming a position where once they reach the end of their rookie contracts, not as many teams are willing to pay. Obviously, there's going to be teams willing to pay a premium. I believe Jamar Chase will get paid by the Bengals. I'm curious to see what happens with T. Higgins. I could see him playing on the franchise tag this year, and then if he's not willing to take at least a little bit of a friendly discount, I could see him being traded elsewhere. Because I believe T can be a number one receiver elsewhere. Do I think he's Jamar Chase? No, I don't think so. I think that he's a very good number one, and he's an outstanding number two receiver, and that's what I think they have in Cincinnati. And it's a shame because they haven't had an offensive line to protect their quarterback, and Burrow's dealt with injuries for a good part of his career so far. And if they don't solidify that offensive line, they're going to get him killed. And you're never going to really see the ceiling of what this Bengals team could be. Justin Jefferson, I believe he gets paid by Minnesota. I think Minnesota sees them as their face of the franchise, and now where they have J.J. McCarthy on a rookie contract, you can afford to pay Justin Jefferson big-time money. And he's probably going to get $25 to $30 million a year. And I think that's money well spent for the Vikings. They've not had a guy like him since Randy Moss. And I think with a young quarterback right now, that's something they desperately need, is a go-to receiver that they know they can rely and depend upon. So I think going forward, Justin Jefferson will get a new deal. I think Jamar Chase will get a new deal. He'll take precedent over T. Higgins. And I think T. Higgins might be the guy that ends up getting shipped out and traded. Whether that's before the start of this season or whether it's after the season and he plays on the franchise tag, I'm not sure. I think he has until July to sign the tag, and he has not signed it as of yet. From a Patriots standpoint, obviously I'm a Patriots fan. Drake Maye signed his contract, 4-year deal, obviously with a 5th-year option for a rookie. $36 million with a $23 million signing bonus. All this is now slotted based on where you were picked for the most part, so that's why you're not seeing these rookie holdouts like you used to see back in the day. I remember the Sam Bradford situation where he got an insane amount of money, and then obviously the rookie cap came into effect, which I think has been a good thing. And these are fully guaranteed contracts, so if nothing else, those rookie deals for the first round picks at least are getting pretty good money and fully guaranteed for the most part. In terms of what happens with Drake Maye, I'm really not sure. If I were to bet on it, I would say he's not your starter week 1. I would say week 1 it's Jacoby Brissett. And Gerard Mayo also talked about how he wanted to trim the roster down a little bit, mentioning the quarterback room. They currently have 4 right now, Drake Maye and Joe Milton, both of whom they drafted. Maye at number 3, Milton in the 6th round. And they also have Bailey Zappi and Jacoby Brissett. Zappi's been here for a couple of years, 4th round pick out of Western Kentucky. And Jacoby Brissett just signed in the offseason, and I think he's who they're planning on keeping as their bridge quarterback, whether that means he's the starter at the beginning of the year. I would assume he will be. I think Brissett's the starter. He's familiar with the offense that Alex Van Pelt's bringing in from Cleveland. And I think overall, your quarterback room for the Patriots is going to be Jacoby Brissett, along with 2 rookies in Drake Maye and Joe Milton. Milton has all the physical tools. Obviously, there's some issues in terms of his accuracy. You don't always know where it's going. He's got a cannon for an arm, but I really think that if they really work in developing him, they could turn him into an NFL caliber quarterback. I'm not saying that he's going to be the starter, but he could be someone that's a serviceable backup should Drake Maye have injury issues. So I think it's good to have two young guys. Obviously, the Redskins, the formerly known Redskins, in 2012 drafted Kirk Cousins after drafting Robert Griffin III with the second overall pick. They drafted Cousins in the fourth round. So, and they were right to have both quarterbacks. Obviously, Griffin had injury issues, and they went with Kirk Cousins from that point on until he left for Minnesota. So I think it's a good idea by the Patriots. They saw a talent there in the later rounds. Why not take a flyer on him and see what they can develop him into? But the receiving core for the Patriots, Kendrick Bourne's still working his way back from an ACL injury. So you're really relying on a young receiving core, and Juju Smith-Schuster, who knows how that knee is. He said he wasn't completely healthy at all last year, and he feels like he's closer to 100% coming into this year. I'm not really sure what Juju has left in the tank, or if he even makes this roster. Tyquan Thornton has been a bust since they took him out of Baylor in the second round a couple years back. Haven't really gotten much production out of him. I think this is his boom or bust year. There's a good chance I think he could get cut as well. He's obviously been showing off on Instagram that he's put on a lot of weight. He's bulked up. And that was one of the concerns with him when he was drafted, and since he's been in the NFL, is that he's very thin, easy for me to say. And so obviously adding some bulk isn't going to hurt him. Hopefully it doesn't decrease his speed at all, because that was one of the things that he was known for out of Baylor, was his ability to get open and get separation through his speed. But Pop Douglas, I think, is going to be a very solid slot receiver for the Patriots. I think he's going to be someone that could be here for years to come and can be Mr. Reliable for the Patriots. And Javon Baker is someone that I'm very high on. I think Javon Baker has a chance to be a star in the NFL. How he fell to the fourth round is beyond me. I guess there were reports that there's issues with his dad being too hands-on. But I really, really like Javon Baker's game, and I think he's going to be the eventual favorite target of Drake Maye, especially when looking to get the ball down the field. So I think that the Patriots, they're going to be in for a tough season in terms of wins and losses. But if they can establish an identity on offense, I think that's going to be a big step. If they can show improvement with Drake Maye's development, that's an even bigger step. And if you can also find a couple solid receivers that you can potentially draft another receiver in the first or second round next year as well to add to that group, that would be huge. I also think the defense is going to be very, very good. What happens with Matt Judon, that I'm not sure of. I think Judon has a chance to potentially be traded depending on what happens with his contract situation. He's obviously going to be looking for a new deal. I didn't see today if he was at OTAs or not. But I also know that he held in last year at training camp. He didn't miss any time, but he did not participate until he had his contract reworked. So I think there's a good chance you'll see something similar to that. Personally, I would try to get draft picks for him and send him to a contender. I think that's a best case situation for both parties. I think Judon deserves a chance to be on a winning team, and I think there's plenty of winning teams that would want him, just depending on what the price would be. And then you got Christian Gonzalez, Christian Barmore, who just signed a new deal, the biggest non-Tom Brady contract in Patriots history, which I think is well-deserved. I think Barmore is one of the best defensive linemen in the NFL now, and especially at a young age, he's someone you wanted locked up quickly. And they've re-signed Kyle Duggar, who I think is a very solid safety. Reminds me a lot of Patrick Chung. Still has his issues in pass coverage, but overall, I love Kyle Duggar's game. I think that was a hit by Belichick when he took him, even though I had never heard of Lenore Ryan until he drafted Duggar. But I think that the defense overall is going to take even another step this year. Keon White, I think, is going to take another step. So I think there's a lot of good young pieces on that defense that Belichick put in place that they're keeping and they're going to continue to roll with. Coach Covington's back as the defensive coordinator, and Gerard Mayo as well, so there's going to be a lot of continuity in that group. Brian Belichick's the safeties coach still. So I think there's going to be a lot of continuity, and I think that group's going to come strong, even with a young coach in Dante Hightower being added to the staff in his first year. I think this is going to be a very, very good defense that'll give teams fits. And also, I wouldn't be surprised if they were to try to see if they could get Stephon Gilmore on that other side opposite of Gonzalez. If you get Stephon Gilmore as your number 2 corner opposite Gonzalez, I think you got a hell of a secondary. So I think there's still some moves to be made for the Pats, and I think that it's going to be a year where you're just looking to see if they can take incremental steps in terms of both the offense, the defense, and overall, are they building an identity? It's going to be a very interesting year in terms of how the players respond to a new program with Drake Maye now at the helm and Belichick gone. I think there's going to be a lot of good and a lot of bad from that. It's just going to be a matter of if the good outweighs the bad. And the way that's determined is wins and losses. 6-11 based on their schedule to me would be a positive year this year. I still think they're going to end up in the top 10 in the draft for next year. I'm not expecting much from them. If they were to get more than 6 wins, I would be thrilled. But it's one of the tougher schedules in the league. So I just wanted to touch on some of that stuff for you guys. Thanks again to everyone that's been watching all of our stuff. We're going to try to do a live Shootin' the Breeze next week with both me and JJ. Be sure to hit subscribe on here if you haven't already. Head over to Little Walshy's Sports Takes as well. He does a lot of WWE content on there, so he's trying to build that up. He does a lot of reviews and such from the shows. He does a great job over there, so be sure to check that out. Listen to our podcast. We missed it this Saturday. There was some scheduling conflicts, so we weren't able to make that happen, but be sure to listen to our podcast on Spotify and like us on Facebook at The Walsh Boys Show. Follow me on Twitter at JohnWalsh38 and continue to follow for content on here. Hit the bell notification so you know when we've posted something. And be sure to like and subscribe and share our content when you have the chance. Until then, take care, guys, and have a great night.